Hey guys, I'm just going to get straight into the video. So yesterday I made a video talking about switching from Sony to Fujifilm, what it's like, what my experience was, and if there was a fall off in production value. Now, again, this was while I was working as a production manager and also working as someone who was basically preparing websites, recap videos, promotional videos, commercials, things for broadcast air, live streaming, digital streaming and whatnot, as well as preparing for future cable streaming and everything. So, I switched from Sony to Fujifilm during the middle of all this, knowing that a lot of the things that would be seen would be broadcast not only to us, but at the time of leaving the business I was at, reaching about maybe a couple thousand people outside, at least. That was impressions, so it could have been groups and things, but the impressions were a couple thousand people during our events outside of the location. And outside of the city that we were located. So, there was a lot to it. I had a lot riding on it. And I could basically tell you that there was not a lot of difference in production quality, and there wasn't really a fall off in production quality from moving from Sony to Fujifilm, which is great for a lot of people. But there was a big difference from switching from Canon to Fujifilm. Now, I switched from Sony to Fujifilm, and I shot that for a couple years. And then, unfortunately, I got talked back into full frame. And the reason why I got talked back into full frame was because I was shooting a sporting event late at night, and I just didn't have the low light quality that I wanted. And what I meant by low light quality in my mind at the time was I wanted everything to be exposed regularly, and that's not the way it's gonna work. I mean, it was a darkly lit place, dim lights were out in the building. It was a basketball tournament, and honestly, with any camera, it would have underperformed. But that's immediately what my mind went to was, man, I don't really like the way these shots look. It must be because I have an APS-C sensor. Fast forward to me selling off majority of my Fujifilm gear and buying back into Canon with the EOS R. I just found a really good deal for it online, so instead of going for the A7 III again, I went with the Canon EOS R and, purchased the glass I used to have, so Sigma 1.4 50mm, the 40mm pancake. I bought an adapter. I bought the 35 1.8. I bought the 200mm f2.8, and I continued to work with that. The only issue with continuing to work with that gear was the fact that, man, it did not perform like I thought a Canon camera should. And I'm sure it's been fixed in the R5 and R6, but there was a step down in my production quality with that Canon camera. The movements, the dials and everything were very clunky. The swipe feature for ISO and things, or whatever you could set it up to, and the swipe button at the back was very not natural to work with. There was an issue a lot of times with autofocusing and actually hitting focus. Autofocus was very, very poor on that lens, to where if they weren't sitting directly in front of me and their face wasn't filling up the whole frame, I never saw an eye autofocus box ever while I was shooting on Canon. Very, very heavy. The battery did not last the way that I expected it to. Now, here's the thing is, with my Fujifilm cameras, I was pretty good about batteries and everything on my battery life. On my Canon EOS R, I actually had to buy 3 extra batteries because I noticed that having the camera on, shooting, not even shooting these high burst modes, but shooting video, really just shit all over the camera. Was not a good experience whatsoever. And I just tried to push it like any regular person would. The crop factor was total shit. I was so upset about that. Just because it made me feel like, okay, I have to use the 35mm now for video, because in order to get a not super duper zoomed in cropped, and it made me think, okay, I'm gonna have to buy a wider lens. I'm gonna have to get a wider focal length because of the crop factor in this video. So shooting in 4K and then shooting in 1080, the image was horrible 1080 image. I don't know how else to explain it other than it was really, really bad. Maybe someone's done a video on the EOS R or any of the Canon cameras in 1080p, but it is very, very just, it's not pleasing video. Line skipping, I believe in the 4K is what I observed. I once again, the biggest thing that I cared about was for photos. Video was the second thought. I didn't do much research because in my line of work, and what I'd done, Canon had never been that bad. They had never given me that weird of an image. I'd never had those issues when trying to put Canon into my computer and trying to basically unwrap it. With this EOS R, it was the first ever time to where not only did I have trouble with my computer unwrapping it and trying to decode it, I don't know what was up with the codec, but the images looked blah. They didn't look too great. Even with the L glass on my lens, it did not look what I was used to seeing from Canon. And even more, compared to the Fujifilm images, the colors seemed very Samsung screenish, if that makes sense. Everything is it's like it's intentionally saturated from the jump. And I guess just being with Fuji for so long and then with Sony and Olympus, it just made me realize, I'm not sure if there's a difference between the sensors and everything and the color science in the 5D Classic, the 5D Mark III, the 5D1, and then the mirrorless cameras, but I noticed a huge ass difference, and it was not a good one. All of the negatives from switching from Fuji to Canon were pretty out there, and it became a camera that I didn't really like to shoot with. Not only that, it was heavy as shit, and so a lot of times whenever I'd bring it places, whenever I was traveling, I wouldn't pull out the Canon. I wouldn't pull it out. It was too big. People would know I was taking photos. It made me feel uncomfortable to carry around, honestly, because it was so damn heavy around my neck and on my bag. But also pulling that thing out, people stopped doing what they were doing and began to focus on the camera, and the whole vibe changed, and I didn't like that. So then I said, you know what, f*** it. I'm really, really mad that I let myself buy into the full frame thing, because when I started comparing shots, similarly, I started looking at ISO, I started looking at, focal lengths, my shutter speed, and so I tried to compare certain shots that were similar between multiple focal lengths between my Fujifilm and my Canon that I had archived. It just really wasn't, it wasn't that impressive what I was getting over it. And in low light, it wasn't that impressive because, again, it made me it reiterated the fact that it's low light, not no light. And just because there's shadows and things in my photo doesn't mean it's a bad photo. Digital grain's not a horrible thing, and also the fact that as long as my subject is lit well, it doesn't matter what the background looks like. And I lost track of that with Fujifilm because, again, I started watching YouTube videos with what's in my camera bag, and so it kind of f***ed me over. But whenever I got back into Fujifilm, I actually went ahead and purchased the X Pro 3. And then I purchased, just a couple lenses for it. Here's the transition from Canon to Fujifilm. The first thing that you're going to want to know is that, man, you can get a lot of money off of your Canon products, especially if you have nice glass like I did. I made a buck, dude. I made a lot of money. I bought my EOS R for about, I want to say $12.50. Which was very, very cheap. I bought my 35 1.8 for $300, very, very cheap. My 50mm 1.4 from Sigma was destroyed on the outside according to Lens Authority. The outside was messed up, but the glass and everything was great. And with that, I think I bought that for like $400, which that lens goes for about $600. And then, I bought the, 70 to the 200mm f2.8 for about $400 as well. So I was actually able to sell everything and break even, which is very good. And accounting for eBay to where I know they take money out of it, so I accounted for that with my pricing, I actually was able to break even. So I didn't lose any money on that. As far as, spending money. So I had it all back in my pocket from basically what I spent after I sold all my Fuji gear. So when I bought my Fujifilm gear, the first thing I did was I bought this X Pro 3 and then from Lens Authority, and I bought a 35 f2 because I just kind of didn't want to spend all the money, and I kind of lost the magic of photography and videography in me, and I just wanted something that was going to be small, I could walk around with. So I bought the 35 f2. I'd never owned it before, and I bought the 18 f2. Lo and behold, didn't really like the 35 f2, sold that, now I have the 35 1.4 again. But switching from the systems, first off, Fujifilm was way more affordable. I actually pocketed over $1,500 from what I bought with Fujifilm. easy trade, easy sell. Wasn't even worried about it, or like, should I use this money to buy other lenses? Didn't even have to worry about it. Pocketed $1,500. You're going to be able to purchase a lot more bang for your buck switching from Fujifilm to Canon. The second thing is, man, I'm telling you right now, Fujifilm's autofocus, as of the EOS R, I don't know about the R5 and R6. I think those beat it. But if you're not buying the R5 and R6 and you're thinking of Canon and Fujifilm, buy Fujifilm if you're worried about autofocus, because it's not even touching it. The Canon autofocus, even with dual pixel on, where center focus is not nowhere near in the R, and the RP was not anywhere near, even after the firmware updates, what any Fujifilm camera is right now, from the X-T30, X-T3, X-T4. Honestly, my XE3, if I remember correctly, was jumping and boxing people's faces and eyes whenever I was in Hawaii. A camera that I am so sad that I actually sold, and I can't wait to get it back. So yeah, the XE3 actually did a fantastic job, even with that, and I would put that above what the R and the RP are able to do. So if you're looking to jump into Canon and jump in the R and the RP, I would just skip that, and I would just go for a Fujifilm camera altogether. Not to say the R and the RP aren't good cameras. If you have them, fantastic job, congratulations. They're great. They're going to do what they are for you. This is for if you're looking to make a transition from Canon to Fujifilm. If you're looking between buying Canon to Fujifilm, what are you going to expect? So the big things you can expect, of course, is the price difference. You're going to be able to get more bang for your buck with Fujifilm with their lenses and their bodies, because of course, smaller sensor, smaller glass, less money because you're using less glass. Autofocus is going to be better if you're buying between the R and the RP. Now, is Fujifilm able to compete with the R5 and the R6? Not necessarily, no. They're not as good, and that's fine. But they are pretty close, a lot closer than Fujifilm is to Sony. And that Sony to Canon gap is a lot larger than people will tell you in reviews, just from what I've used and seen. And so that's one of the great things about knowing your camera company, your local camera store, knowing you can go down there, knowing they'll let you look at a camera, test it out, see how the focus is. Go to your local mom and pop camera shop. I cannot tell you this enough. It is going to help you out so much. So there's those two things. Of course, the weight, and the biggest thing that you're going to get the feeling of from changing to Canon to Fujifilm, the biggest thing you should expect is that for the first couple of days, you are going to question whether you did the right thing because of the APS-C to full frame change. You are going to think that. You are going to think that you f***ed up. You're going to think that you didn't buy what you should have bought. You are going to think all these things because that is what you're going to see for the next few months, years, whatever, where people talking about full frame is it. And I want you to know, you're not losing on much. You can see the photos that I've taken. You can go to my website. You can go to my Instagram and see photos I've taken on the X Pro 3. Honestly, some of those are from the XH1, the XT3, the XT30, the XE3. You can look at the video that I'm recording right now and the videos I've recorded on the X Pro 3. I'm doing this to show you that Fujifilm is not only professional enough, but it can handle everything you want, even when it's not described as that. The X Pro 3 is not a video camera, but look at how well it's doing for video. It's doing more than good enough with the F-Log. You're going to be coming up with doubts. You're going to be worried that I make the right decision. You're going to be worried, is this professional enough? And you're going to be worried, how will people receive me in my little camera? Well, let me tell you right now, I've got no grip or anything on my X Pro 3. I just bought a deluxe Kaza case, a leather case that I can show you guys in a few days. I still haven't given up the DJI Osmo Pocket, so maybe I can use that to show it. But basically, you're not going to be losing much. You don't have to worry about that. You're going to be okay. There is not a huge significant difference between APS-C and full frame on the photography side or the videography side whenever it comes to everyday application 90% of the time. You're going to be just fine. Don't let the haters, don't let the enthusiasts and gurus and the fanboys tell you any different. It's the same thing all the way around, where people always say there's limitations to this, that, and the other. I don't like the way this looks. I don't like the way that looks. It's all subjective. If Fujifilm makes you want to go out and create like it makes me want to go out and create, buy these cameras. If Canon makes you want to go out and create, if Sony makes you want to go out and create, buy those cameras. But for me personally, if you're worrying about what the transition to Fujifilm from Canon to Fujifilm is going to look like, I'm telling you, the only things that you're going to notice are the size and weight, is a big plus for Fujifilm. The autofocus, for a majority of it, is a big plus for Fujifilm, and there's only a slight advantage in the R5 and R6 whenever it comes to Canon. And I'm telling you right now, for the price difference, it's not worth that slight advantage. The price difference, whenever it comes to what you can buy, whenever you sell your Canon gear, you're gonna be looking at a big difference. Honestly, if you're someone with a Canon lens, let's say a 7200, and you can sell that thing for like $1,900, $2,000. I want to put it like this. You're going to be able to buy a 50 to 140. You can get it used for around $1,300, $1,400. I've seen it as $1,200 on MPB. Think of what you can buy a second lens with that cash, or you being able to pocket that and put that into you or your family, a date with you and your significant other. That's the kind of thing I'm getting. There's more bang for your buck, and that's a great lens as well. You don't have to worry about IBIS because not every Canon body has IBIS. So guess what? If you want to get the X-T4, if you want to get the XS10 for $899, there are a lot more areas where you can jump into Fujifilm at different price points to get different things. You can get for under $1,000 IBIS in an APS-C camera that does pretty damn well and shoots 4K video. You can get you a small little camera like the XE4. You can get you an X Pro 3. You can get you an XT4 if you want IBIS and the full shebang-a-bang. You can get you something budget like the XH1 and use that primarily for video, and then get you an XH2 or an XT3, which are still two great cameras, and the XT3 has been updated to have performance similar to the XT4, and get two camera bodies for the price of what maybe one of your Canon bodies would have cost. The possibilities are endless, and the biggest thing that I want to tell you is that you're going to hear about it. You're going to hear about APS-C and full frame. It's going to be a thing that comes across your face. Don't worry about it. Don't freak out about it. Trust me, just hear me out on it. Go to a camera shop and take some photos. Feel the way it feels in your hand. Low light, yeah, there will be a little bit of a difference, but whenever you learn how to shoot in low light and what you're looking for and how you want your subject to be lit, it completely changes everything. That's basically it, man. You know, I talked a little bit about what my transition from Canon to Fujifilm, how I didn't like it went, but the transition from my Fujifilm to Canon transition, what I didn't like, but my transition from Canon to Fujifilm, there was no looking back. I was like, damn, okay, this is where I belong. I belong to Fujifilm. That's plain and simple it. Unless you f me over, you don't give me everything and someone else undercuts you with price, I think I'm sticking with you for a while. That's it for the video. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good one.